in general, the main argument for it from the people who are suggesting it is that it's a really good source of retinol, of the preformed vitamin A. And there are some other things in there as well, but one is vitamin D, and a lot of the people who are recommending this are not in favor of vitamin D supplementation, but they're saying, hey, it's a small amount of vitamin D and there's a lot of retinol and the ratio is good, so it doesn't matter. And there's also a good amount of omega-3s in there. One of the counter arguments I've heard here is that it's mostly monounsaturated fats. So don't worry about the omega-3s, which is, well, no, it's true, but there's still a huge amount of omega-3s. Normally when you're looking at any sort of, if there's a fat, very high PUFA foods are 20 to 30% PUFA normally. When you're looking at nuts and seeds and seed oils and things, that's a super high PUFA food. So they're majority MUFA normally. They're majority monounsaturated fat, but there's still huge amounts of PUFA, which is a legitimate major concern. They're really high PUFA foods. So just because it's mostly monounsaturated fat doesn't mean that there's not enough polyunsaturated fat to be concerning. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. But yeah, let's talk about the specifics here. I've got a breakdown of the composition of, I'm using Rosita cod liver oil, which is the one that's often recommended by, from the people that we've heard recommending it. So in a teaspoon of Rosita cod liver oil, you're getting 3,900 IU of vitamin A, 395 IU of vitamin D, and 1.3 grams of omega-3s.
Which is what, 25% omega-3, because a teaspoon is about 4 grams, correct? Or
yeah, I think it's about, right around 30-something% omega-3s. The total fat's 4, and it's 1.3.
So I want to clarify a point here. The omega-6 oils usually run from, depending, some of them are high at 50, 60%, but they usually run in that 20 to 30% range. But running in 20 to 30% fish oil is or omega-3 fats is extremely high. You don't see that in anywhere except fish oil, essentially. Usually the omega-3 content is much, much lower. And even in the studies that they run, there's problems with greater than 1% of the diet in calorically as omega-3 fat. So just something to keep in mind overall.
Yeah, and this is the amount, if you were getting a fish oil supplement, you'd normally be getting about 1 gram of omega-3s. This is 1.3 grams. So this is a fish oil supplement. That you are getting the equivalent of omega-3 as a fish oil supplement with vitamin A and vitamin D. And 3,900 IU vitamin A, 395 vitamin D. So I think that's kind of first piece is just, this is the composition. Let's make sure that, I think a lot of people who might be taking this don't realize that. So just wanted to make that clear. And then as a comparison, there are some really great retinol sources that don't have the omega-3s. So of course we've got things like dairy and eggs, but beef liver is the one that's most commonly recommended. And so to get the equivalent 3,900 IU of vitamin A in beef liver, you would need 0.82 ounces. Tiny amount. And the other thing, of course, is vitamin A builds up. So if one time a week, you're getting, 5 ounces or so.
That's even too much. I don't even think you need to have 5 ounces a week.
Sure.
Not that it's too much, but you don't even need to have that much to have adequate amounts of vitamin A from liver. You don't even need to do 5 ounces a week. It could be it could be half that. You could do 1 ounce a week.
Yeah. I think most people, I normally recommend, somewhere in the 3 to 6 ounce range, depending on body size, thyroid status, of course, because another concern here is excess vitamin A is an issue. It can be an issue if you're hypothyroid and struggling metabolically. So there's some concerns with having too much vitamin A for sure. But yeah, so anyway, if you wanted to get 3,900 IU of vitamin A every day from liver, you could have 5.6 ounces per week, and that would get you that same amount. So it's one meal of liver, maybe if you split that between 2, but we're not talking about a large amount. And of course, if you're having it every day, it would be just 0.8 ounces. So a lot of people like to, just have a little amount every day, and you can do that, and that would be the same amount of vitamin A. And with that vitamin A, for one, you get 2.2 milligrams of copper, which is a lot of copper. And these people are normally suggesting that we get a lot of copper. So this is a great copper source if that's what you're looking for. And you have 1.6 milligrams of omega-3s. So that's 0.001% of the 1.3 grams that you would get in the Rosita omega-3s.
the other thing to point out here, just while you're in this, like talking about the nutrition. So 1 ounce of beef liver and chronometer shows 4 milligrams of copper and only 1.9 milligrams of iron. And the reason I bring up the iron is because they often discuss, a lot of this I think comes from that root cause protocol stuff. So where they talk about iron being highly problematic, you could create a diet that incorporates 1 ounce of liver a day for the vitamin A, if that's something that you want to do, and still keep a low iron intake by just changing your other protein sources. So if your other protein sources were dairy, or if your other protein sources were things like shrimp or scallops or cod or sole or flounder or chicken or turkey, you could easily have a low heme iron intake below the RDA, creating a diet like that. And then you could also minimize your iron intake by combining the foods that have iron with calcium. So it's like, I don't see calcium and then other foods that have tannins that can inhibit iron absorption. So you could easily do that, like without having to take in large doses of omega-3s.
Yeah. And we'll talk about in a second that those omega-3s are a real problem, like a very legitimate problem we've talked about in the past, and we'll at least kind of gloss over it and at least mention some of the reasons here. But the other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of people are saying that they're taking the cod liver oil and they're feeling like it's benefiting them. And I just wanted to point out that sure, maybe the benefit is from vitamin A, but if you were already getting beef liver, then I don't know how you could argue that's from the vitamin A, because you were probably getting more vitamin A from the beef liver. So it would have to be some other difference, either that you're not getting something that was in the liver, maybe you've had excess copper issues, and so not getting as much copper from beef liver might be helping you. That I don't think that's the best solution then to get your vitamin A from cod liver oil, but just want to mention, like, there are other differences here that can account for those benefits, but it can't be the vitamin A if there's the same amount in both. So the other possibilities also, though, are that either A, or I guess we're on B now because I mentioned the copper, but either you're benefiting from the vitamin D in the cod liver oil, and if you're someone who's in a place where you're not getting much sunlight and you haven't for a while, and you're not taking any vitamin D already, perhaps you're actually getting some benefits from the basically 400 IU of vitamin D. And then also the omega-3s themselves. So we'll get into this with omega-3s, but we've talked about it previously that omega-3s in the short term are anti-inflammatory and also immunosuppressive. And those things can be beneficial in terms of their short-term effects. Like in the same way that if you took glucocorticoids, if you took cortisone or something, it can clear up pretty much any issue, any inflammatory issue, which is virtually all of them are kind of founded in an inflammatory base. And so you can get a ton of benefits from that, but it comes at a major cost long-term. So I think that's something to consider, is that the benefits, like if somebody's feeling better with the cod liver oil, it might be because of the omega-3s, and that wouldn't be a good thing. That would be something that is going to create a problem long term. And so I would be really careful. And this is basically, again, a huge reason why we really aren't fans of getting vitamin A from cod liver oil or anything else from cod liver oil. If you want vitamin D, I don't think that's a good place to get it either, because of the huge issues that the omega-3s create.